Bueno, qué interesante y emocionante está siendo esta mañana en ESADE. La verdad es que recuerdo hace 10 años, cuando iba a ver a las gestoras de inversión, a las grandes empresas, a las entidades financieras, y les explicaba el mundo del impacto, y era un auténtico desierto. Todos me escuchaban con unos ojos así de grandes, y poco a poco se fue transformando a un nicho, y ahora claramente tengo la sensación, y más viendo hoy la sala de SADE con el lujo de invitados que tenemos, de que verdaderamente el impacto se ha vuelto central, se ha vuelto mainstream, y a día de hoy no hay ninguna gran empresa, pequeña empresa, inversor que no se plantee poner el impacto en el centro de sus estrategias.
Sí, la verdad es que es un lujo poder tener reunidos en una misma sala grandes gestores, asset managers, asset owners. Esto hace 8 años era prácticamente impensable, hoy lo hemos conseguido en ESADE. Y realmente también lo que he hecho mucho de menos es estos eventos presenciales, no solo por la calidad de los ponentes y el poder ver, ¿no?, cara a cara a todos esos speakers, sino también por los momentos de networking que se producen. Así que esperemos que en los próximos años podamos volver a esos eventos presenciales que hacíamos del Impact Forum, donde reuníamos a muchísimas personas y poder no solo estar y participar activamente, sino también entrar en contacto con todos estos agentes.
Totalmente, Maite. Nuestra esperanza es que el año que viene podamos recuperar un evento con mucha más presencialidad. Pero bueno, todo hay que decirlo, el online tiene sus ventajas y una de las ventajas es que nos permite tener conversaciones con personas que están en el extranjero, que lo hubieran tenido más difícil para venir en persona y que están pudiendo participar en el Impact Forum gracias a las ventajas de lo digital. Una de ellas es Firoz Ladak, que es el CEO de las 10 fundaciones Edmond de Rothschild que hay en el mundo. Es una persona que está haciendo una transformación extraordinaria en la manera de entender la filantropía que tienen estas 10 fundaciones y con ello una contribución al impacto realmente impresionante. Tuve el lujo de tener una conversación con él y mirad lo que nos contó.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Clara Navarro. I'm CEO of the Ship to Be Foundation, and I'm so very pleased to welcome today Mr. Firoz Ladak, who's the CEO of Edmond de Rothschild Foundations. Good morning, Firoz. Thank you for joining us at the Ship to Be Impact Forum.
Good morning.
So a few words about him. Since 2005, Mr. Firoz Ladak has led the strategy, international development, and financial management of the Edmond de Rothschild Foundations. He spearheaded the transition from a long-standing tradition of charity to venture philanthropy, something we have been talking about a lot this week, driven by impact. He has been collaborating closely with the entire Rothschild family, and he has helped to transform their legacy into a formidable force for change. He has managed more than 100 programs across the arts, entrepreneurship, health, education, all of this through a network of 10 foundations that improve the lives of thousands of beneficiaries all over the world, in Europe, the United States, West Africa, South Asia, and Israel, which is really impressive. And on top of that, he also sits in the board of several various foundations and philanthropic initiatives. So I cannot imagine a better person to discuss the role of philanthropy in all of this impact movement, right? So with all of your experience, we're looking forward to hearing your views. So Firoz, I wanted to ask you first of all about the role of citizens. This week, we have been talking a lot about the different forces that are fostering the impact economy. And it seems like awareness has risen among citizens in the last few years about social and environmental challenges, probably because access to information has also been easier. And this access to information goes both ways. So citizens are not only better informed, but they are also becoming more vocal about the need to address those challenges. Do you agree with this? And do you think something is changing? Is this a sign that we're entering a new economic and societal phase?
Thank you, Clara, for your kind introduction. You forgot to mention specifically that we have a foundation in Spain. I hope that throughout our conversation, I'll be able to also use some examples in Spain. To answer your question, yes, absolutely. I think that that especially in the last year, the negative impact of climate change in places like Canada, Australia, California, Spain, have alerted the entire planet on the urgency of transforming our economic models. As I always say, and it's not new, it's not any longer a matter of choice. It's a matter of urgency, because looking into the future of our children, right now what we're going to leave behind is pretty dismal. And so, of course, what has happened in Glasgow recently shows even more the importance of everybody committing to change, because climate change is not only about environment, it has huge economic and social consequences. And so to that extent, we see now a rallying force. So it's not any longer, militants, for instance, who want to alert the world. It becomes now a convergent movement where activism, policy, economic interest, investors, and philanthropy, rally together out of choice, but more importantly, out of necessity.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And how do you feel about the role of philanthropy in all this? Because we have been talking a lot this week about startups, about large companies transforming themselves. And obviously, that's the base of the economy, right? It's the economic actors that have an economic activity and that need to change to make it more sustainable, more equitable. But what are the roles that other actors can play in helping this transition? And particularly, where do you see the role of philanthropy in all this?
So, it's very much the model which, I've developed at the Rothschild Foundation over the last 15 years, which is really, first of all, claiming that philanthropy cannot operate in a silo. So we see, countries like the US in particular, where philanthropy is much more developed because of history, because of the fact that the state played, of course, a lesser role than in providing social good as compared to Europe, and also, of course, in terms of means. That being said, what I've noticed in the US is that it's still very much an environment which operates with its own rules. And I wanted to break those boundaries. Now, in Europe, it's at the same time more challenging and also easier. More challenging because, of course, the state, whether it being in France or in Spain, continues occupying a central role, and it should continue to have that role on providing social good. And so traditionally, the boundaries between the state and other actors have been quite pronounced. But by the same token, because of limited means, and even more so now in hopefully the post-COVID era and how much it has cost those states, I think the role of private philanthropy in particular, which I represent, becomes even more important, not so much in terms of funding, because of course that's also part of the equation, but I think more importantly in terms of ideas, creativity. So I always define our philanthropy first and foremost as a lab of ideas, as a lab of solutions. So that's my key definition of philanthropy. Now, Clara, what we've also done in order to basically break those boundaries is from the get-go engage multiple stakeholders into solving an issue. For instance, as you probably know, we're quite involved in creating ecosystems for impact entrepreneurs, whether in Spain, with the likes of Unlimited Ship2B or La Bolsa Sociale, but also in France, which is our home ground, and also in Israel, and also in West Africa. And what we mean by ecosystem is that we feel that those small companies that need to at least show a proof of concept. So these are not mere ideas, but they need to be scaled up, require an entire spectrum of advice. And so we play that role of bringing on the same table to a specific company, lawyers, bankers, including the ones from Edmond de Rothschild Bank, people involving communication, HR, really treating those companies as if we would treat, much larger companies. It has proved to be very successful because we've seen, for instance, in terms of impact measurement, how these various companies, which now all together, since I've been managing those foundations, probably are above 500 today, across our network, and how these companies, for many of them, have been able to actually raise funds. And this is also what we're about. We tell those companies, which we select with our various partners in different countries, you need to basically convince investors that actually what you're trying to create has, of course, a positive social or environmental impact, but first and foremost, makes sense financially. And we've seen also how in certain instances, some of these small companies that are being purchased by larger ones, and I have absolutely no problem if the original creator of the company out of this sale makes money. I think it's perfectly fine as far as I'm concerned, as long as it can demonstrate a positive impact. If you want, I can use some examples in Spain in particular. Sure. So from actually developing these ecosystems, we also felt that we ourselves should become investors. Now, that's always a challenge in philanthropy because impact investment is risky by definition. It's also long-term, and we can certainly not apply undue pressure so that such and such company brings back returns on investment in a short. I think patient capital is key to actually transforming the world. But that being said, we felt that it was important also that we also put a bit of our own money into some of these companies. So an example, for instance, is Encantado de Comerte in Madrid, which has a very interesting model, which is basically, it's actually a platform which allows any citizen to actually purchase goods which otherwise would be wasted, especially food. So you know very well that because of regulation, expiries are very strict, but it doesn't mean that the product cannot be consumed or is dangerous. So in order to basically break that waste and go more into that sort of circular economy mindset, we've put some money together with another leading foundation in Spain, which is La Fundación Carasso. These are the founders of Danone, by the way. And by the very fact that both foundations have put a bit of money into this company, then we have the sort of trickle effect of actually enlarging the group of small investors. Someone can put 15 euros or 20 euros, 100 euros, but it has a sort of positive impact, because if we do it and we have the means in terms of analyzing the company, then others might join. And that's also the role that we want to play, is to say we certainly don't have the rule on anything, but we hope that we can bring people together, and it's been successful. I think the company altogether has raised above 200,000 euro for a small company in Spain. I think it's certainly significant. Another example is this other company called Wake Up and Smile. Really interesting. So they're tackling another issue, which is how do you treat pain, which is scientifically a very unknown area. And they've used actually some artificial intelligence and also virtual means in order for the patients to actually experience well-being, experience sensations which perhaps would not be accessible otherwise, and address the whole issue of pain. And in this instance, not only has a company raised above 200,000, but also we also help them to distribute the contract, the products with various hospitals in Spain and also in our own hospital in Paris. So these are just two examples that sort of explain what is our mindset.
This is so very interesting because, I remember when I started studying at business school and they told me there is the world of business to make money and there's the world of philanthropy to not make money, but do good. And what I'm hearing from your words is that these two in a way have to merge and collaborate together. So your role, the role of philanthropy becomes interdependent also with the role of other actors, other philanthropic actors, but also other businesses, other investors. So to what extent is the philanthropic model really evolving, not just in your case where it's obvious, but where do you see this model evolving in general, globally? And also, do you think there is a mindset shift that is needed? We talk about the mindset shift that business needs to do for the impact economy. What is the mindset shift that philanthropy needs to do?
Very bright questions, thank you. So first of all, yes, this is very much my take on philanthropy. The fact that I've been an investment banker for about 15 years before joining the Rothschild family perhaps has an explanation for what I call the a business mindset to doing good. That being said, I will never criticize or question those who continue giving out of their heart, which could be seen as traditional charity. I think there's space for everybody. And sometimes giving cannot even be measured. And it's fine. It comes from religious factors or societal factors or personal giving. But in our case, we felt that it was important to play that role as a driver of change. With challenges. When I say that, for instance, the world has no choice but to bring together multi-stakeholders in addressing the huge challenges that we're facing, it's not easy because a business mindset from a company that is about making profits and distributing dividends, of course, it's different than a foundation or even the state, which of course operates often enough with its own mindset and also is very much driven by policy and of course the political agenda. And I would even include, for instance, the international organizations that we also interact with. The headquarters of the foundation is in Geneva, so of course we're close to the UN, which yet again is a totally different mindset. So it's challenging, but it's exciting. And as I said, now what is important and what I see is that it's not a matter of choice anymore. So people really start understanding that there is no choice but to try to bring all the forces together. And I would say that yes, the likes of Emma Thunberg or those big activists around the world have played an immense role in really making people aware. And again, it's people aware also coming from the big capital. It's not only foundations or it's not only NGOs.
So we are running out of time. This is so interesting that we would love to stay here for hours learning about your experience. But I would like to ask you one final thing. For those philanthropists who might be listening to us today, or maybe those people who have wealth and have not engaged so far in significant strategic philanthropy, what would be your invitation? What would you say to them?
Well, I've already started engaging in these conversations, including in Spain. I have had interactions with private philanthropy, so even corporate philanthropy in places like Barcelona or Madrid. I can see that there's a real appetite, and the only thing that I do is basically sharing, what has been our experience. I'm not there to teach lessons, and that's also what's exciting about philanthropy is that in the end, it's a space for comfort, a place for freedom, a place, of course, for responsibility, which we can share with others. And I continue having questions. one last point is that I felt that this goes beyond Europe. So for instance, we have created this platform of foundations from emerging markets, including Latin America, Colombia, Argentina, Peru. And it's so exciting, Clara, because you realize that on the ground, in places like Peru, for instance, dealing with issues of women or education, those philanthropies are really, really on the ground. And I feel that sometimes they should be more visible, more, given a more voice to the big organizations like, like the UN and so on. And the last point I want to say is that philanthropy, in our case, has moved from, of course, giving, funding, but also investing our own capital. So for instance, I've operated over the last 5 years an entire shift towards SDG investment, which creates in itself a lot of questions, but it's certainly becoming a real asset class. And so that's what I call mission alignment. We give and we invest, and we've got to be coherent.
Fantastic. So we'll stay with that message. Thank you so much for your generosity in sharing this experience. We hope to have you back next year, and hopefully together we can help stimulate this philanthropic role in Spain and in Europe that I think is so much needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.